Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. It is the second round of the Abruzzi Tin Top Sprint. We had a very dramatic opening race in Jerez, but we moved from Europe over to North America for this stage of the Tin Top series from the Sim Racing Collective. My name is Adam Reed. I'll be in the comms box for tonight's action here. I'll be really looking forward to be getting in towards the tonight's action. Of course, I will be alone in the comms box around this absolute behemoth of a race circuit. We are at the Virginia International Raceway, based 45 kilometers east of Martinsville, in what seems to be in Alton, in Virginia, of course. So, huge place to be. A circuit that was opened in 1950. Closed and then reopened in 2000, and it's been the home ever since then of some really top level motor racing, mostly used for the Indoor Sports Car Championship, mainly for their GT. But we are heading into what will be our qualifying action very soon around this absolute incredible 5-kilometer circuit. Let's have a look at the calendar then for this championship. We have had our ways in Europe in Jerez before we then head to VIR. We'll then jump back to Europe before then we head on to where we find the Autodromo Internazionale di Monza. What a circuit that's going to be. Then we'll head to Mount Panorama for round 4 of the championship. What a spectacular setting that's going to be before we head back to North America, where we find Long Beach, and then we'll head south of North America down to South America, where we join the samba parties of Interlagos in Brazil. Are you looking forward to this one? I know I certainly am. I've also got live chat here. The YouTube chat will be active as ever, so I'll be looking forward to seeing you all in the chat as well. So comment your favorite driver, do whatever you can to support your guys that are going to be racing. Here are the championship standings then in the Porsche Cup is Jamie Nuttall, who took the win last time out in Jerez with Janos Wenzel, the German driver, the privateer, looking to maybe just continue his fine form. What about Paweł Griszka, the Polish driver, in P3 then? Bobby Moss, followed by Charlie Rusnicki, with Kang Nagayan, and then Bjorn Kalseth, the first of the Norwegians in this in the championship. James Radford, followed by Hodson, with Samuel Kremers in P10. Simon Norton, followed by Alex Richards, Lenny Hansen, and Nikola Iwanski, and Tony Preston, Daniel Roberts, and Diogo Marquez. My apologies, with no points there for Milos Mersky, and then we've got Martin Tuiska and Louis Hesketh, and then Martin Blankenstein. Of course, he is entered, but yet to participate in a race this season so far. Let's have a look at the TCR standings. We're at the top there with a triple Brit 1, 2, 3 of Tom Davidson and Craig Twardock with Mav Gardner. What a result that was for Audi, and they're making it a TSRC Esports 1, 2, 3, 4 with Quinten van Wijngaarden in his Audi, I believe. The Dutchman putting himself in a really top spot. Vincenzo Sagnito in his car. The Italian putting himself in a top place there. Byron Forrest now at his home events. Let's see what he can do. Currently 6th in the championship with 15 points. Can he potentially bridge to those 3, or should I say 4 TSRC esports drivers, really put himself amongst in the mix? Nick Clibbins, followed by Paolo Miniti with Paul Smith and Mauro Gabbiati. Rounding out the top 10, Adam Cianicki with Daniel Bull, Daniel Merchant with Gareth Ronda and Paul Sims, Anti Quaranta, the only French driver in the field. followed by Fabio Falci, and then no turn-ups here. Arn Solono, and then Andrew Pike. What about Francesco Carduolo, Antonio Morabito, and Piotr Dobalia? They are some drivers that haven't competed, but they're your championship standings. We head into what would be the second qualifying of this championship. We've managed to ramble on so much that we have less than 4 minutes left in this session here. So it looks to be, at this moment in time, Pavel Grishka at the top of the standings. And there he is after what was going to be a really, really interesting session. We had Martin Blankensteiner heading to the top of the boards for a short moment in time then. So you'll hope to just potentially try and claw his way back up. It does look like Jamie Nuttall is in fact out there at this moment in time, but he's still not put in a decent lap so far. We need now take tabs with one of our drivers heading through. And that seems to be Tom Davidson, the championship leader in the TCR field. Craig Tordog behind him as well. The current best times in our TCRs, 155.8 there for Tom Davidson, but Craig Tordog does a 155.7. Stunning lap time there from Tordog. Would he be able to maybe topple Tom Davidson, who's been on a fantastic run? He's a two-time runner-up in the Tin Top Sprint Championship, so he'll be looking for a title in this one. Quinten van Wijngaarden also in P3 there, sitting in a really, really good spot. But there's 5 Brits in the top 6, which really kind of puts a stamp to the authorities of how good these Brits are. We now look to the German here of Janos Weinzel, heading through that final section of corners. And he'll make his way out of Hogpen and on towards front straightaway, on towards that little kink of turn 18. Actually, let's stay with Wenzel, because this is going to be a hot lap down in towards the horseshoe we go of VIR. Hard on the brakes. This is a downhill section. Really have to get the car rotated into one, and then get yourself back on the throttle. Use all of the circuit that you possibly can. Flick it in towards 2. Hard on the anchors for NASCAR. Ben, use all the runoff that you possibly can without deleting your lap time. Then you've got to hook it up through the left in towards the right, and of course it gets really technical through here, because you've got the likes of 4A, 4B, 5A, 5B, 6A, 6B. Through the snake you go. Underneath the bridge we go. I'm very used to the north layout, but I'm not used to this layout. It's been a while since I covered this section, but look how good this is up the hill. You're really pushing the limits for heading through turn number 10 here at South Bend. Then you head down the hill. Then you need to hit your braking point. Which braking marker do you want? Probably about through all the tube. And you've got to kind of double hook through Oak Tree and use all of the exit there on the left-hand side. And it looks like Wenzel will use whatever he possibly can. Past the back shape we go on the extra pit lane that there is used around this VIR circuit. Now you're heading back uphill on towards turn 13 and turn 14 of the roller coaster. You're braking and turning at the same time. It can be oh so difficult as you get it rotated through 14, get it well slowed down before powering way back out through 14 through 15, and then on towards 16A and 16B is this right hand up before you then head through Hogpen and on towards front straight. That is a lap with Janos Wenzel. He'll head through turn 14 because that is right before the timing being just there. Where will he put his car? It looks like he's staying P3 for now. No time improvement there from Wenzel, but that seems to be qualifying about to get done and dusted here. 30 seconds left on the clock. And it looks like it's going to be Bobby Moss at the top of the standings in the Porsche Cup. And that will be a fantastic result, especially with the fact that Jamie Nuttall has not been able to get a good lap time in here. He starts down there in P15. The clock ticks to 2-1-0. And it's Craig Twardock who will be on pole in the TCR. So we'll be able to get a grid for you in just a moment's time. But yeah, just before we go onto the grid, I just want to say a big shout out to Abruzzi, who we've managed to strengthen our partnership with. But here is the grid. It's going to be Bobby Moss at the top of the standings with Pavel Grishka and Janos Wenzel in P3 there. Then we've got Martin Blankensteiner, followed by Alex Richards and Charlie Ruznicki, with James Radford and Josh Hodson, with Lenny Hansen and Simon Norton rounding out the top 10. Then we find Daniel Roberts and Mikolai Iwanski on the 6th row of the grid. Diogo Marquez, followed by Tony Preston, with Jamie Nuttall rounding off the top 50 in the Porsche grid. Then we find Craig Twardock, who is the leader of the TCR field, with Tom Davidson and Quinton van Weingarten, with Nick Clibbens, and then Andrew Pike, Adam Stanicki in what seems to be P21. He's alongside Mav Gardner in P22, Vincenzo Stagnito and Byron Forrest rounding off the 12th row of the grid. And then we'll find Paolo Miniti, Maro Ghiabatti, and then we find Piotr Dobalia with Daniel Merchant, Paul Sims, Antonio Morabito, and Daniel Bull will round off the 31 cars that will take to the field here at the Virginia International Raceway for round 2 of the championship. Again, just to kind of reiterate, I do want to say a big old thank you here to Abruzzi, who we have managed with the Sim Racing Collective to really strengthen our partnership with them. So thank you so much to Abruzzi for trusting in us. We are also a recommended league to Motorsport UK Esports. So they are very much thankful for their services for recommending us. So here are the cars at this moment in time, still sitting in the pit lane. I think we're just waiting for everyone to get going. Somebody's just flashing there in the background, it seems like. So I just wonder who that could be. So we do have 15 Porsche Cup cars and 16 TCRs in this field. There's some really strong drivers amongst this field. I'll be interested to see how this all pans out. You know, we've got some really strong guys that can take on this 5.2 kilometer circuit. So you know, there'll be a lot to take into consideration. There's not been a lot of changes to this circuit kind of since since the inauguration back in 1957. I think the only thing we can really say is that the checkered flag or the finish line has been moved, and we've had some extra pieces of road on the in the inner parts of this race course here. So it looks like we're going to be having our one out lap for these drivers. It's going to get used to the conditions. The pace car, which I believe is a Porsche Cayman, will roll off the grid, and there you can see Bobby Moss leading the way here at Virginia International Raceway. There's going to be a lot to contend with, knowing the 18 corners around this circuit. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of kind of high intense racing around here. You know, there's a lot on stake, despite this being a six race championship. There's still going to be a lot of promise for these drivers. Just beware on the first lap, because it could get very difficult. Already support coming in the chat here for Charlie Rudnicki, who currently starts 6th place at the moment in that Porsche Cup. So good luck to Charlie Rudnicki from our YouTube chat here. How will he fare? They make their way already down the back straight. Byron Forrest, of course, in that TCR field. The only American in the field, so I wonder if he will be able to really push on forward. Track temperature, seemingly the vibe around Virginia is that it is always, and I mean always, baking hot. Air temperature 29 degrees, track temperature 45.5 degrees. These tyres are in for a mega beating. Uh, that is going to be so difficult to keep an eye out for. No kind of rain on the horizon either, so we're going to be looking to be dry all throughout this this 40-minute race here at VIR. A mandatory pit stop will be enabled for the drivers. There, your TCR. It is an all Audi front row with Nick Clibbons in the kind of breaking that with no, sorry, it's Quinten van Wijngaarden in the Hyundai breaking that kind of row of Audis. It just seems that the Audis are really strong as a TCR class, and of course the Sim Racing Collective, their esports team, are going to be very happy with what they're seeing. Their cars at the moment, 1, 2, 3 as well. There are going to be a lot of positives to look about that. I think also something to keep an eye out for are going to be some of the it's going to be some of the debutants. I think the one I'm looking for at the moment is going to be Martin Blankensteiner for the Cracked Racing team. He sits on that second row of the grid, so really keep an eye out for our Danish Viking, who may be able to just seal a really good result here. I think there's going to be a lot up for stakes here. If you're able to get something good here, I think there's going to be a lot of positives to take in with you. So that skill grid then rolling towards the green flag here at Virginia International Raceway. Porsches are about to head towards the line. Round 2 of the Abruzzi Tin Top Sprint. We go racing at Virginia. What a start here from Bobby Moss. He's going to be feeling hopefully a little as less pressure as possible. They head their way in towards Horseshoe. Is Pavel Grishka, who looked to be trying to go on the attack here, swooping it around the outside of potentially Wenzel. But it looks like he's managed to put himself up into P2 here. But there's more drivers still side by side. They head their way now in towards NASCAR Ben. And our TCRs are away. Tom Davidson has managed to put himself up into the lead in these early stages. Nick Clibbons in what seemed to be the DHL livery already starting to pressure these guys. Davidson using as much the track that he possibly can. Really good start from the championship leader. It looks like Adam Sinecki and Andrew Pike are going at each other here through. They head on toward the snaking section of this circuit. The 40 minutes are really ticking down already. It is Davidson from Twardok, from Clibbons, from Van Wijngaarden, with Sinecki, with Pike, Gardner, Stagnito, Forrest, Miniti, top 10 in your TCRs, but it's been a pretty quiet opening lap, but that's kind of what you expect. Charlie Rudnicki, who has already had a little bit of support in YouTube chat, well, it hasn't quite gone that well for him. Down 4 places in these early stages, but he's looking to try and make another one up here to head their way up to all the roller coasters. Somebody's made an error there. That's Diogo Marquez from Guernsey. A very rare flag to have in sim racing. You don't really see that too often. He's with the virtual Lusso racing team. Just goes down 11, so massive unfortunate moment there for Marquez, but that's the end of the first lap here for our Porsche driver. Still pretty quiet up at the top end, but it has been pretty active down in toward the bottom end. Jamie Nuttall has been up 5 places in these early stages. Josh Hodson has been down 6, so those are the biggest changes to our records here. Looks like Tom Davidson's gone up a place. Clibbins up another place. So there's some really good stuff there in the early stages for these guys. Meanwhile, the biggest loser, Mauro Gabbiati, in the Hyundai, down in 15th, down 4 places as Daniel Bull from the back of the grid. Made his way back up in, well, I say made his way back up. He's gone up 3 places, which looks to be oh so positive. And there is Martin Blankensteiner for the Cracked Racing T. Beautiful livery on that number 96. He's really been able to push on forward here and see if he can just etch on forward here. So it looks like Wenzel had a little bit of a dismal maybe second lap in this case, and now we're seeing Jamie Nuttall, the 2-time tin top champion in the Porsche class. Will he be able to maybe make up another place here? He's side by side what seems to be with Lenny Hansen, and he's actually managed to get past Hansen already. So some really good stuff here from Nuttall, but that's exactly what you expect when you're sharing a track with a driver that has been on an absolute run of races here. That win in Jerez confirmed his 6th win in a row, and also I'm pretty sure of course it was on pole position last time around, and now he's going to see if he can potentially work his way up the grid, and we'll have to see what the pace difference looks like in these early stages. Of Martin Blankenstein has gone and done the fastest lap in the Porsche Cup cars. It's Andrew Pike now. We're sitting with the TCR field, so they're really making the split here. So they'll come back around on each other, and that's where we'll see some real intense racing and really decisive decisions being made, especially in these early stages. The fastest lap at the moment, I believe, in this TCR field, 155.449. That going to Quinton van Wijngaarden. Still a couple of side-by-side moments. Oh, that's somebody going round, and that's going to be Charlie Rudnicki out into the infield, out into pretty much what is no man's land here in Virginia. That's going to be so unfortunate for the Polish driver. He'll regain his position. Looks like Diogo Marquez is also into the pit. Simon Norton is well off as well, so he had an earlier issue. Let's have a ride on board here with Rudnicki. He just got caught out. That is simply just getting caught out. He was pretty much tailgating the rear of Daniel Roberts, and then pretty much just go around the rear. Got a little bit freaked out. The rear went around, and that is going to be some huge unfortunate moments there for Charlie Rudnicki. So the TCRs will pick back up. Again, they're still at this time sitting in line. It's Davidson from Twardok, from Clibbins, from Van Wijngaarden. Really switching up places here in the classes. What about Adam Stanicki, one of 2 Polish drivers in the field? We seem to have a real grasp of Brits, of Polish drivers and Italians. They kind of seem to be the main focus, and you've got a couple plots of Americans, of Dutch, of Guernsey drivers, Germans, and then also Danish drivers in this field as well. So a real amazing mix of cars and nationalities as well. Daniel Roberts under a bit of pressure here from championship leader Jamie Nuttall, the Cracked Racing driver, very much starting to put some pressure. Oh, Roberts going to be able to handle that pressure, and obviously showing some cracks in early doors. Both the Mark Whiteledge Motorsport team still holding off his fellow same nationality. I always keep forgetting that word. It's a word that always escapes my mind, but it sometimes comes back at me, sometimes it doesn't. So it's kind of one that doesn't come to me that often, but it's one that I might have to try and remember for future references. Bobby Moss still putting in some great lap times here in his car, as Jamie Nuttall has in fact got past Daniel Roberts. go back to what's happening in him just a second. But some good defensive driving here from Bobby Moss. Daniel Roberts is just having a bit of a technical issue. I think maybe a bit of blinking here. But already Pavel Grishka is going to try on the outside here of Moss. But Moss says absolutely no, you don't. And it's going to invite Martin Blankensteiner to try and have a move early doors. But as I said, that's exactly what it is. Early doors in this race. And I think Martin Blankensteiner just thought, well, I'm not going to risk too much in these early doors. You know, we're 8 minutes into a race, for goodness sake. You know, why should I throw it up the inside? If I'm just gonna, cause myself to, to get involved in an accident, which is, not the most ideal situation. I think Janos Wenzel is also going to try and get involved, but some personal best last time around for the likes of Grishka and Wenzel. The fastest lap overall going to Bobby Moss, 147.359. So we feel continuously burning down here for our drivers. Tires continue to be getting involved here. That is Charlie Renicki giving a little bit of a punt there to the side of one of the Audis. That's not going to be very fair from you, Charlie, but yeah, it looks like he has maybe got himself back out onto the racetrack. We've had a pit stop from him, from Simon Norton, from Tony Preston as well. So it's now going to get a little bit sketchy for the Polish driver as he tries to make his way back through the field. Looking back here with Bobby Moss, Pavel Grishka, still putting a lot of pressure there on the back of Moss. It's going to be some a titanic battle that's just going to go, I think, the entire raceway, and Blankensteiner, I'm sure, will not hesitate to have a look up the inside. And again, Janos Wenzel getting involved. How far will these guys battle? Because remember, there is a pit stop involved. There will be a sense of strategy amongst the top four. Also, with Jamie Nuttall up into 5th place here. How long till he's involved in the fight here? Because overall, he's 5.5 seconds behind Janos Wenzel. We'll get back on the lap times in just a moment, because here comes James Radford. Is he going to get maybe tagged around? Oh, it's just a lazy spin there from the 13 Porsche. Oof. Finds himself into the side of another car. How unfortunate is that going to be? That looks to be Lenny Hansen who got involved in those latter stages. Daniel Roberts with this one. Is he going to have another lazy spin? He catches a curb, manages to straighten it back out. And then there comes the lazy spin. So the rear was still slightly loaded, I feel. Back with the live action. It looks like Pavel Grishka has managed to get past Bobby Moss now. And what about Martin Blankensteiner? Will be looking that thing in well. Excuse me. Yeah, commentating with a bit of hair in your mouth isn't always the best way to go. So, for any future commentators, I don't advise that. Woof. That was Pavel Grishka managing to get past Bobby Moss. It wasn't the most, the most gracious of overtakes. It's an overtake nonetheless. Now Blankensteiner really wants an opportunity to get back on through, but that's going to be easier said than done around a circuit like this. Last time around, Pavel Grishka 147.6, Moss 148.7, so a lot slower there, and then Wenzel in P4 147.7, so just a tenth. About half a tenth down on Grishka's time. But what about Jamie Nuttall? Well, he's the first driver into 146s. 146.9 for him last time around, so he's going to be slowly gaining, and that gap now at 4.5 seconds. So gaining a second from the last time I looked. And Tom Davison still leading the way in the TCRs. Wardock still half a second behind him, so that's not going to be something to give up that easy. What about Nick Clippers, who's managed to get past Quinten van Wijngaarden as well. That's what you're going to be keeping an eye out for the moment. If you are maybe one of those drivers in the middle of the TCR pack, how do you kind of work away here? Because Nick Clibbens, whilst he's kind of the third car out of the 3 Audis in the top 3, there's a lot of 3s in there, but how do you play this one? Because you are right in the middle of a lot of TSRC esports drivers. You're the only iRacing esports driver in that entire top 6. How do you play this one? Because it's one of those where you've got to be a little bit careful. You want to kind of apply as much pressure as you possibly can. You've got to kind of rely on your pace as well. But you're all so similar. Quinten van Wijngaarden posting the fastest time last time around 140. 156.2 from Quinten van Wijngaarden. What's the fastest time for our TCRs? I believe at this moment in time that goes. Goes to Quinten van Wijngaarden with a 155.449. So the Porsche drivers up at the top end, starting to really build on what is, evidently going to be a absolute thriller of a race here. But it looks like Martin Blankensteiner is indeed happy where he is, but he has lost a bit of time here to Bobby Moss, which is not exactly what you want. So I think if you're in the Danes' shoes here, you're going to have to really hope that Moss and Grishka do battle here. Unless you can find anything in the pit stops, which, bearing in mind this is Blankensteiner's first race here, I think, for this championship. Yeah, he hasn't competed in previous seasons, but, the likes of Bobby Moss and, Grishka have been in these championships before, so he's going to really try and push on forward. Now look back here a little bit in towards the midfield places. James Radford sitting on the fringes of the top 10. He's got Iwanski in front of him and Hodson behind. There's going to be a lot to contest with, I think, in this stage of the race. Be interested to see kind of how each battle develops, because we're now 15 minutes, well, past 15 minutes into this race now. So 24 minutes of this one remain. Still some open opportunities. We saw last time at Jerez the battles really pushed on, and I was going to talk about pit stops, but this is the even bigger picture here. Nick Clibbens trying to maybe outbrake Nick Twardok, but ended up outbraking himself. Now finds himself at the mercy of the Hyundai of Van Wijngaarden. Will Van Wijngaarden potentially find a move here? The Dutchman looking to just tuck himself in behind the Audi. The DHL car should really be planting himself in the middle of the circuit, but Van Wijngaarden just not quite there. Not finding the kind of final etch on the Audi of Clibbens to try and get through, but this is a real big opportunity here for the Sim Racing Collective Esports team to have their cars once again 1, 2, 3. Again, I thought there was a move coming in from Van Wijngaarden there, but it just didn't come off. I think there's been some more supports in YouTube chat as well. We see Mauro Gabbiati getting through there for P11. He was just overtaking the Audi of Piotr Dorabiala just now. Of course, Dorabiala in his opening race of this campaign. A lot of support coming in for a lot of these drivers as well. I think there's a lot of first names, so I'm just trying to remember who. Well, I'm just trying to locate who these could be. We've got a Richard, we've got an Alex as well. So we'll have to see. But now the Porsche drivers coming upon the TCR guys. This is going to be a pretty hefty potential moment. One of the Porsches wide here. That's going to be Pavel Grishka. That could have been all sorts of Larry. And that invites now Blankensteiner back up into P2 now. And he's right behind Bobby Moss here. So Blankensteiner taking the opportunity. This comes so quickly. And this a massive change of pace, but in towards the roller coaster. Just could not find that move. Nikola Iwanski trying to go for a move on P8 here of Hansen. This is going to be pretty rough. I've seen my fair share of moves in toward this section of corners. And there you can see Radford just in behind as well. Some really promising battles going on all the way through. I've been absolutely loving watching this because VIR just throws up so much potential for great racing, and Radford is into the pit lane as well. So that's been some really good stuff from Radford, but I think he may be a little bit of disappointment here. Look at Mikola Iwanski and Lenny Hansen doing battle once again. The Briton in the Porsche just getting through on Iwanski. Head their way through into the water left-hander here of NASCAR Ben. And again, there'll still be line astern of Hansen, Iwanski and Hodgson. 8th, 9th, 10th. And of course, they've got to consider Radford in all of this as well. Iwanski looking to go for a move here, and he's managed to find the space on that number 69 here of Lenny Hansen. And they're going to be side by side, wheel to wheel, door to door, up this section of corners. I think it was the right move there for Lenny Hansen to just go, I'm going to back out of this. Otherwise, we're both getting into an enormous accident. That was could have been well avoided, and exactly it was. Look at the gap that's been opened up here by Mikola Iwanski. The Polish driver will now try and charge on forward. We now see Bobby Moss here being put under pressure. He managed to get through on what I believe is one of the leading TCR cars here. So that's going to be huge for his sake. Into the pits comes Pavel Grishka as well. We've also got Byron Forrest coming into the lane. I'll have a look at the right side of the screen. Just keep an eye out for any more. But I don't see anyone who's pitting. Onto the jacks for Forrest. You see there Mauro Gabbiati just powering on through. That was some fantastic camera work. So thank you very much, director. That was incredibly well timed. Gabbiati still pushing on forward. Not being able to pass there. Daniel Merchant in his Hyundai Elantra. Audi seems to be pretty good around the circuit. This was Mikola Iwanski. Did he have a self-spin by any chance down in towards the horseshoe? And oh dear, it was. Oh my word, and that was a very close call there, which what I think was that potentially Lenny Hansen. We're just seeing another replay. We're now back to live action. This race has absolutely flown by. 18 minutes left in the session. Gabbiati, she's still behind there. The Hyundai Elantra, the number 22 goes on by Alex Richards. So Alex Richards has now lapped these guys. Now we're seeing, I think that's going to be that Lenny Hansen just going on by ears in the number 69. So, that's the kind of interesting part about this type of racing, that you've got cars going left, right, and centre, especially if you're a TCR car. So there's a lot to kind of contest, and it's, it's like, it really is like endurance, kind of, endurance racing, trying to avoid all the traffic, but it's a kind of arguably a much slower pace. You've got Porsches and TCRs instead of LMGT3s and hypercars or whatever, or any form of prototype whatsoever. Look back to Clibbin before going to a replay there of Daniel Bull. So Daniel Bull is the 149 Hyundai. Oh, that I believe was, oh dear, that's the 333, I think, of Tony Preston's. That was very early on, I think. It looks like Preston is into the pits as well. He's also another more contact with another high TCR. That was a lot to kind of handle that. If we can get maybe another replay in a couple of moments' time, that would be oh so useful to just kind of be able to go over that once again. But that was some really hectic stuff, not what you wanted. So here we go, back with Daniel Bull. He's letting what seems to be Tony Preston go on by, loses the rear onto the grass. Grass is pretty much ice, goes into the side there of Preston, and then oh, another Porsche just joins him. And I wonder if that secondary Porsche would that maybe have been Iwanski, so Mikola Iwanski there involved in that one, and that's going to spell the end to his, well, horrific race. You know, part of it, you know, not being his own fault, just kind of, you know, misfortunes. Lenny Hansen now sitting ahead here of Pavel Grishka. And that's going to be a big battle here, because remember, Grishka is the leader of the drivers that have pitted. Jamie Nuttall is in 5th. He's come into the pits as well. So Lenny Hansen, who makes his way into pit lane after holding up the former race leader, will Nuttall be able to get out ahead of our fresh pitter? No, Pavel Grishka is now ahead of Nuttall, but that is pretty good if you're Jamie Nuttall. Well, I should say Pavel Grishka instead, because, you know, Nuttall's now found himself 9 seconds behind Grishka, but, you know, with a driver with almost 6k iRacing, you would expect him to really be able to push on. But will the streak end here for Jamie Nuttall tonight? You know, as I said, he's won 6 races on the bounce. He could win a 7th, but will he? That is kind of the main topic of discussion, I think, going into this race. So we've passed halfway into this race. We've got 15 minutes left on the clock here. Andrew Pike in P5 has not pitted. Batting away here with Quinten van Wijngaarden, the only Dutchman in the field in the Hyundai Elantra. Is he able to push on forward here, the number 5 dark blue car, because he's also got Nick Clibbins in front of him. The driver to pit, well, the highest driver to pit at the moment in terms of the TCRs is Mav Gardner. Mav Gardner got a podium last time around in Jerez. Just spotted somebody coming in. We'll get on to that in just a moment, that being Daniel Roberts. So Roberts, who's had a couple of technical issues all throughout this one, made a way into the pits. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Yeah, the highest driver at the moment who's come into the pits is Mav Gardner. But it does give a good idea that we might be seeing Vincenzo Stagnito. If he can get out ahead here of Mav Gardner, and that would signify him to be the leader of all this. Here is Mav Gardner, in fact, being lapped here by the number 13 of James Radford. So Radford goes on through, and looks like, yes, Mav Gardner does in fact go ahead of Vincenzo Stagnito, who's just coming out the pit lane. So Gardner on a push here, but how far can he kind of go up the ranks? I reckon he's going to go right to the top here, because Tom Davidson still hasn't pitted, and that early pit stop for Mav Gardner seems so kind of smart here. He's managed to pit in some really clean air. You know, with the way things look to be going, you know, he can definitely put himself back on the podium for a second time this season. Nick Clibbins will look back to, because right now his race is, you know, trying to keep a podium away from Quinten van Wijngaarden and Andrew Pike. To the right here, down the roller coaster and on toward the hog pen they will head. Again, it's one of those where who blinks first in this case in the TCRs, because as I said, there's the podium up for grabs, and it looks like they're all going to come in at the exact same time. Davidson in, Twardog in, Clibbens in, Van Wijngaarden in, Pike in. Does Paolo Miniti come in as well? Because he might have to fuel up very, very soon. We'll keep an eye on him. And Boohoo comes into the hog pen and he's in as well. That will mean all of our TCRs have indeed pitted now. They are just serving their stock. We now look back here to the Porsche Cup category. Lenny Hansen being put under a lot of pressure here by Josh Hodgson. A little bit of a little bit of racing where it's maybe on the limit. There's some good stuff nonetheless. I think this has been such an entertaining race, has VIR. I've loved coming here. In the virtual world, maybe in the real life, chat, in the real life as well. I've got plenty of years ahead of me. IMSA, if you want to hire me, I'm here as always. Tom Davidson now comes out of the pits leading, but what's happened to Matt Gardner here? He's only managed 6th place here, 15 seconds behind Tom Davidson, so I thought he'd get in the mix. Doesn't seem to be the way to go here, so bit of a disappointment here for Matt Gardner. It's in comes Bobby Moss and Martin Blankensteiner coming in at the same time. 11 minutes to go. Not the only ones into the pits, because Janos Wenzel is coming in as well. Fastest lap of the race still with Jamie Nuttall on 46.9. Blankensteiner just about to try and get out ahead there at Bobby Moss, but Bobby Moss saw him moving. I was like, nah, I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to let you this time around. And Pavel Grishka has managed to grab 3rd, but yeah, that's kind of, something that's happened, a couple of laps ago, when he was trying to, get through the traffic. Just didn't work in his favour. Moss and Blankensteiner went on through. And this is your main battle for the race lead. What about Jamie Nuttall? Well, he is 13.4 seconds behind. It looks to be Pavel Grishka. Well, the race 13 seconds behind the leader, 11 seconds behind Grishka. And what has happened to Janos Wenzel? Because he, at the moment, has gone down to 5th. This man was running up in 3rd place for a good portion of this race. We saw him in 4th, and then he just switched places with Nuttall. And he's 3 seconds behind the Brit there. You can see in the background, front lifting up for the Crafter Racing team's Porsche. Some really positive stuff so far, but Jamie Nuttall might have his podium run come to an end. We look more further down, we see a very, very active Porsche field trying to trim their way through a set of TCRs, and this is where it could get a little bit frosty between these two classes, especially through this uphill section where it's so difficult. Clippins having to move out of the way. How worrying could that have been? I'll give you a little bit of a fact here. If Jamie Nuttall cannot finish on the podium, this will be the first time that he's ended a race in the Tin Top Series and come away with not taking a podium. That is what's on the line here for Jamie Nuttall. So, something has gone wrong here at Virginia. Well, I can't say that I'm the bad luck here, because the first time I covered this championship, you got a win here. So there has to be maybe something about this circuit. Clock ticking down to 8 minutes left to go. Byron Forrest hasn't had the best of runs at his home event in the United States. Yeah, it's been quite the difficult kind of, someone's gone off there, it seems like. That's going to be Alex Richards, the number 22 Porsche for the TSRC Esports team. And that's going to be massive, massive frustration. I wonder if that's just a straight lockup and he's doing a lot of the mowing work here. So I don't know if that's going to please or, be a disgruntled towards the owner of the VIR circuit. This is Adam Sinecki in the TCR class. What's he done? Gone a little bit wide. Again, a lot of mowing today. There seem to be a lot of drivers turning their cars into lawn mowers. I don't know if that's really the best way to go about this race. Yeah, you can see that was the moment there for Alex Richards, which saw him glide his way off the road. And the number 22 man, we just thought, well, my people need me. No, I'm gonna go cut across the grass. I think it's one of the lucky times you think, thank God we're in sim, because the amount of grass that would have entered the radiator would have been nothing short of horrific. I don't know how many people here in YouTube chat watch British touring cars, but trust me, when these drivers take a trip across the grass, you just see the amount that comes out from the ventilators and the grills. It's just abhorrent, really. It makes you really think, God, that could have been horrible in terms of the overheating. How long did Richards spend in the grass then? Must have been absolutely awful. Yeah, Alex Richards also was earlier receiving a little bit of support there in YouTube chat. Judge Hodgson trying to go around the outside here of Hansen. But Lenny Hansen has the inside line. It's like, no, you don't, little fella. I'm not letting you go on through. Strong maneuver from Josh Hodgson as well. That was some really strong driving. And the number 88 will potentially just keep hold of his position. We'll have to see how he does with 5 minutes left to go. Not long left. Byron Forrest will continue to push on forward, and it looks like, whoa, we're still side by side. 3 wide down into towards Horseshoe. Oh, that could be contact, and it is contact. Oh dear, Alex Richards has been taken out on that part, and it looks to be also Byron Forrest who has been left in the VIR grassy lands. That was absolutely detrimental for Forrest continuing, but it looks to be a retirement there for Alex Richards. He has thought, I am out of here. I am not doing this anymore. And I kind of feel that, he's tried to overtake cleanly, and the last thing he wants out of all of this is a massive whack to the side of the car. Still side by side. That's Sims and Dorabila, but you can see the outside. He's just trying to overtake cleanly. I'm not really going to put that down to anyone, to be honest. I don't want to kind of point any fingers, but it's so unfortunate. Byron Forrest there getting tagged around, and Alex Richards just being an innocent party and all of that. We're on board here with Piotr Dorobiala. With 4 minutes to go, he might be able to nab a 12th place here away from Paul Sims, the Simoff Racing team. Honda versus Audi. Usually Audi has prevailed in a lot of these, but look at that. That's going to be Bobby Moss going on through. And what about Blankensteiner as well? He's going to look up the inside in towards the roller coaster. I had to hold my breath then. That's going to be all sorts of Larry as well. Off the road goes the Honda. Goodbye, goodbye, Paul Sims. Oh, that's going to be absolutely woeful for the amount of grass going in towards the radiator for that one. Again, it's one of those lucky moments where you think, well, at least it's not got the opportunity to, at least overheating hasn't been coded into iRacing when it comes to going off track into grass. So I think I don't want to repeat with that too often, because that might put a bad simulation for iRacing to try and create into their heads. Craig Twardock still looking to potentially put Tom Davidson's championship challenge at a freeze here. And of course, Tom Davidson, who's finished second in season 1 and season 2 of the championship in the TCR class, goes and wins in the in the opening race of Jerez, and then I'm thinking, well, Tom Davison surely is the man to go and win the championship and potentially do a Jamie Nuttall of season 2 and win pretty much almost well, in fact, every single race he competed in. But it is still not over. With the short amount of time we have left on the clock, it's just about who will be able to cling on in all of this. Bobby Moss has managed to create a bit of a gap here between himself and Blankensteiner. So we'll have to see if that all comes to pan for the Briton. I did mention that Blankensteiner could be a big kind of plus to this championship. In fact, the Danish driver has, and Pavel Grishka just hasn't been able to really do anything about it. But with the TCRs now coming into a bit of play here, Moss having to take a little bit of aggressive action, and now with a minute and a half left on the clock here, so we're going to be seeing the final lap of this race. How much risk do you want to take, Martin Blankensteiner? He'll look to the inside line, and in this moment here, there goes the Dane up the inside. Has he got the move complete? No, he hasn't. There's going to be another TCR involved in all of this. It looks like Pavel Grishka is going to find a way through in towards P1. Unbelievable stuff. What has happened? Complete turnaround. Grishka was sitting third after going on to that last lap. He has emerged into P1. Unbelievable stuff. This is something you think about in your dreams. But yet, for Pavel Grishka, it has happened for the Polish driver in the most dramatic of fashion. Let's have a look at it. Up the inside goes Blankensteiner, and I think he would just give it a block pass there to Moss. And then Grishka just goes straight on through to thank you very much. Unbelievable stuff. That is the stuff of dreams. But it's not over yet. Blankensteiner will be slipstreaming the Polish driver up the hill, but the gap is just not close enough. He's not close. He's going to have to send it from Narnia and back if he wants to try and make this happen. Through he goes in towards roller coaster. He knows the dangers of trying to overtake. He's already done it. He's already sent a move up the inside, and that hasn't worked. Look how that kind of worked out. He handed the move over to the Polish driver through the final corner and on towards the home stretch. It won't be Bobby Moss to win this race. It will be Pavel Grishka to win here in Virginia. Martin Blankensteiner gave it his absolute everything, but it was only second that he could muster up. Moss will take home P3. I'm sure he will have plenty of words to say about that. And what a historic day for good and for bad. Jamie Nuttall has entered the race and has come away from it not on the podium. Janos Wenzel down to 5th place here. But we now join up with our TCRs. Is Craig Twardock able to get that car rotated on towards the back straight we go? And Tom Davidson is really trying to apply any form of pressure, but I don't think he's close enough. I don't think he's going to be able to make this maneuver in towards the roller coaster. I think Twardock is going to be so careful on the brakes. He knows what is up for contest here. Through they go in towards the right-hander of roller coaster, and then they'll make their way through Hogpen, and that will sign and seal the deal through the final corner. And in the TCR class, it will be Craig Twardock to take the win in VIR. What a result for the TSRC esports team. It is 1, 2, 3, 4. Once again, they are just another class above the rest. It'll be Andrew Pike to round off the podium in the TCR class. Quinton van Weingarten, once again, P4 for him. It's another Audi 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, Audi 1, 2, 3, I should say. there was also 6 Audis in the top 7. You kind of got a little bit of an idea of what the best TCR to use in this championship is. We'll go through the results in just a moment, but what an incredible 23 laps of racing. The track temperature only came down by 4 degrees. Yes, it was only 4 degrees, but did that kind of make the difference tonight? Because that is something to really feast your eyes on. But here are the results then in the Porsche Cup. Pavel Grishka wins by only half a second ahead of Martin Blankensteiner, who came into his first race tonight. Managed to come away with a solid 24 points. Bobby Moss will take 20 home with Jamie Nuttall in P4. Janos Wenzel in P5 with Charlie Rudnicki in P6. Then comes James Radford, Daniel Roberts, Josh Hodson, Simon Norton to round off the top 10. He managed to stay relatively out of trouble, but yeah, it wasn't the best result that he wanted. Lenny Hansen in P11. Mikola Iwanski in 12th. Alex Richards getting unfortunately got involved in an accident where he retired. He's in 13th with Tony Preston. And Diogo Marquez retired very, very early on. Massive unfortunate moment for the Porsche driver. We now have a look at our TCR field. Craig Twardock in P1 with Tom Davidson in behind. Then Andrew Pike. It's a Brit 1-2-3. It's an Audi 1-2-3, a TSRC 1-2-3-4 with Quinton van Weingarten in P4, Nick Clibbens in P5, Mav Gardner comes in home in 6th, and then Adam Sinecki, the only driver not to, the final driver not to get lapped. Then we find Mauro Gabbiati with Vincenzo Sagnito, and the rounding off the trio of Italians of Paolo Miniti. And that is your top 10. Byron Forrest, of course, got wrapped up in an incident that was, I feel like, wasn't his fault. Piotr Dorbiala with Daniel Merchant. Paul Sims, of course, who went grass cutting. Daniel Bull retired pretty early on, as did Antonio Morabito. The final driver in the 16-car field that entered in this TCR race. Well, what a fantastic results and race we had at Virginia International Raceway. I think this track, especially in iRacing, will go down as an absolute classic. It is such an incredible circuit. Ups, downs, left, rights, you name it. It is in this racetrack, and I'd love to see what we could get. Let's go over the calendar again, just to remind you what we have got in store for you in this 6th round Abruzzi Tin Top Sprint here on iRacing. We've done Jerez, we have done VIR, but we are going to the Temple of Speed. Does your car have the great straight line speed that it needs? Well, you're in the right place. We're heading to Monza for what seemingly we're heading to is their polar opposite. We're heading to the tight, twisty streets of Bathurst, Mount Panorama. Do not miss it. Wednesday, the 6th of May at 8 p.m. UK time. That is just going to be an unreal time to be alive. Long Beach coming up next. Of course, that was recently on the IndyCar and IMSA calendar. And then we head to Interlagos for the Samba, for the final round of the championship. And what could be some championship deciding moments in that one. We'll have to see if there's any interviews, but I think our drivers are a little bit scared of the interview stage. So we'll, but it does look like we won't be having any interviews. It doesn't look like anyone is going to be coming on. So thank you so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure to cover this championship, and such an interesting, kind of, duo of cars. Who would have thought TCRs and Porsches would go so well? But I think it's kind of the circuit decisions that have been made. Like, Monza's going to be interesting. VIR is going to be interesting. I'm so intrigued to see how Bathurst. I'm getting giddy just thinking about it. But overall, That will be it from myself, Adam Reed, and from everyone here at the Sim Racing Collective. We'll see you in 7 days' time when the field heads to the Temple of Speed. Take care. Good night.